Isn't that a beautiful polish there now, all cleaned up? Back to the sharpening table. So today I have obviously a Mora. Most of you have owned and used Moras. I'd say everyone has probably heard of a Mora knives, made in Sweden. This is a Bushcraft model. This is not my knife. This belongs to a friend of mine and slash customer, I guess you could say. He dropped this off this morning, and let me tell you what he wants done. This is a Scandi grind knife, which it's had a small micro bevel put on it. So he wants the bevel corrected to a true Scandi. And notice it's a bit of a rough grind there now. So he wants a nice clean mirror polish to match the face up here. And he wants the spine corrected to a 90, and it's a little bit round right now. So I'm going to do both of those things with this knife today. To start off, I have a tub of water and soak over here with my my whetstone. I'm just going to take this rough tool stone here, and I'm going to start off by crimping some sandpaper over the sides of the stone. Now, this is a little trick I've done a few times recently when I've had to do some more serious grinding. So I'll pinch this sandpaper around the stone, and then I'll put a little clamp I have here around, just enough to hold it in place. And what this will do, this sandpaper is coarser than any stone I have. This is 100 grit sandpaper here, and this stone provides a nice flat surface that I can get my hands down around. So that's how I'll start, because re-flattening a Scandi like this is quite a bit of work. It's not a really easy thing to do. If you want a nice coarse stone, a nice DMT would be great, but I don't have one of those. I don't have a set of those, maybe in the future. But this has been working great. So I'm going to start here, and we'll see how it goes. So I've been grinding here for just a few minutes. You can already see, let me try to get a nice sharp image for it. You can already see some nice consistent scratch patterns here. But what you're watching for is that micro bevel, because that's what's set in far enough, or that's what's set in the most distance from your stone. So you're watching that micro bevel disappear, or get smaller and smaller until it disappears. And once it disappears, you can move on to some finer grits and begin honing. But for right now, you can see there's a definite, you see when I tilt the light like that, this brightly colored edge next to that nice flat color back here, that lets you know that that's a different angle. So we need to remove that entirely. So you can definitely see it right there. It's starting to disappear a little bit up around the front, but we're getting a nice lovely scratch pattern. See that? A little something there. Getting a nice even finish. So I'll keep going until I remove that micro bevel. Okay, so take note now, we're just about done on this side. And notice when I move this around in the light, you do not really see a micro bevel at the edge. See those nice clean striations go right to the apex there. So that's what you're looking for. Now keep in mind, when you're doing this, like I haven't touched the other side yet. You can see there's a very distinct micro bevel on this side. But because you're removing so much material, you don't need to do the same amount of strokes on each side, or keep switching back and forth. Get used to the angle on one side, sharpen all the way until you've made it, and then switch over. You have to sharpen all the way to the apex anyways, so that's your guide, not number of strokes. Just keep going on one side until you get rid of that micro bevel. Then switch over. Now I have to do the same thing on this side, and then we'll even out. Okay? So this is the side I'm about to work on now, and I'll show you when it's done. So on both sides of this bevel now, See nice consistent striations there in the steel on both sides, which is a beautiful look. I've come pretty well right out to the apex, so we should have close to a perfect apex here now, except with that 100 grit, of course, it's a little bit rough and crumbly. It's a little bit more like little micro saw teeth, if you want to picture. Once you have actually created the bevel, which takes a bit of time, that's the majority of your work. Actually honing or going through the stages of refining the edge is pretty minuscule compared to actually creating the shape of the edge. So this shouldn't take too long at all here. Once I'm going to go with the 180. I might have some 320 here, but if I don't, I'll go right to 400 and then upwards from there. So I just finished up with 400 grit. Let me see if I can get you a closer look here at the finish. What 400 grit looks like. Got a decent bit of light coming in from the window there. And it's a nice dull, nice even striations. 400 grit is actually pretty nice grit in my opinion for just rough work. If you were just having kind of a beater knife, 400 grit is nice. Feels super, has like a really big bite to it. Feels great. So what I'm going to do from here is move over to my whetstone, the 1000 grit. So I'm going to get rid of that piece. Then we have my beautiful synthetic combo stone here. I'm going to start working on the 1000 grit and try to get a nice even finish. Remember, keep feeling that edge, that 3-finger test. And also when you go to your stone like this, if you're sharpening a perfect Scandi, your stone should be nice and flat. You're going to want a nice and flat stone so you contact the bevel fully. I can see already that I have a bit of hollow in my stone, so I'm going to use the technique I showed before to flatten out my stone before I keep going. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I flattened my stone, and now I'm working, like I said, on the 1000 side. And it's nice because when you're working with the sandpaper can tend to roll up a little bit. So you have to try to get it to sit as tight and flat as you can. Otherwise, it might be rolling up and it might still be creating a micro bevel on your edge. And that's okay to a very minute degree. But when you switch over to a nice flat whetstone like this, it creates a problem then because you don't have a perfectly flat surface. So it's always nice when you do switch over to the whetstone and you realize that you do have a nice perfect flat bevel. And it's just a pleasure to work with. Now that I've finished on the 1000 grit stone, I'm just switching over to a bit of 2000 grit paper here, partially worn. I'm just going to work it a little bit on the 2000, just as to bridge the gap a little bit between the 6000, which is the final. Sharpening a knife like this, right from, I'll say, a Scandi that's been modified with a micro bevel, going from there all the way back to a razor sharp true Scandi is quite a bit of work. Yeah, it's a bit of a job, and you can see it's getting that beautiful polish on there now from the 2000. 2000 is just a lovely grit as well. This paper is great too. I have here. Unless I just cut into the paper there a little bit. So I wouldn't make too big of a long stride because you'll probably just dice into your paper. But 2000 is a lovely grit. But as I was saying, this is quite a big job. It's a little bit daunting too. I wouldn't want to do this too often. Now it's not a big deal for me here because I'm getting paid to do it, so not a big deal. I'll just charge appropriately, of course, but for my own knives, this is why I work hard to keep them at a nice true Scandi, because once you have removed that, it is such a big job. It takes a while. Now if you have some real good DMTs, I'm sure it would move a fair bit faster, but still takes quite a bit because you're removing steel from such a large surface. So I'm going to switch over to the 6,000 side of my stone here now. Give it a rinse first because it's all dirty with particle from the 1,000 side. And this is the last stage of honing. After that it'll be just some stropping, and this should be one sharp blade. Get rid of my paper there, and let's give it a go. I also, when I refinish that 1,000 side of the stone, I also just checked to see if this one was nice and flat, and as you can see with a little bit of sharpening already, you can see I'm contacting the very middle of the stone, so you know that she's nice and flat. So here we have it, a customer's knife who brought it in with a micro bevel, very rough grind, and rounded spine. Has been corrected to a 90-degree spine. And then we have a nice true Scandi, polished to a 6,000 grit, polished on a diamond pasted strap, and then finished on a non-pasted strap. And let me tell you, this is so ridiculously sharp. A Scandi like this, you're able to get it so sharp. And from what the beauty about a Scandi is, subsequent sharpenings now should be so much easier. Lay it flat on the stone. The most beginner person almost could sharpen a nice flat Scandi knife. So let's take a look at how good that edge is. Okay, so let's bring in the arm here. Let's get it focused for you. Looks like we're focused right about here. Just barely need to touch. And the hairs just fly off of this beautiful knife. If you've never held a bushcraft, Mora Bushcraft, let me get you in focus here. If you've never held a Mora Bushcraft, these are such cool knives. I've sharpened a couple now. Fairly heavy in the hand. Isn't that a beautiful polish there now, all cleaned up. And a nice ergonomic handle, great size. And what I love is this handle here is a soft, sticky rubber. And it provides a crazy amount of traction. Highly recommended. Guys, I hope you liked this video. Please hit the like button. Man, look at that polish. It's so pretty. Hit the like button. Comment down below. Tell me what you thought of it. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. Thank you for watching.